Hi, my name is Stephanie, and I'd like to welcome you all to our webinar today, ServiceNow CMS Migration to Service Portal Best Practices. A few notes before we start. Your phone lines are muted today, so if you have any questions, please use the Q&A panel. Please send those questions to all presenters. Secondly, Jeff will do a demo later on, so you may want to find the full screen mode in the webinar platform now. That'll make it much easier for you to view the demo. And last, I am recording this, so you will receive an email no later than tomorrow with both this recording and a link to download the slides. At this point, I'd like to turn it over to Don Casson, CEO of Evergreen. Don?
Thank you, Stephanie. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining. I'm Don Casson, CEO Evergreen, and with me is my normal co-host and partner in crime, Jeff Benedict, who heads up our ITSM practice and leads our innovation efforts. If you're new to our webinar series, thanks for joining us. If you're a returning or past attendee, thanks for joining us again. Our goal always is to share valuable information and insights that you can use in your planning and activities right now. The topic we're going to explore today is best practices for migrating from CMS to Service Portal. So here's our agenda. After a very little bit about Evergreen, we'll dive into that topic. Beyond that, as Stephanie mentioned, we'll briefly demonstrate some of the concepts discussed in ServiceNow. And beyond that, we'll answer questions if you have any. And as Stephanie said, use the submit the questions you have using the Q&A function. So about Evergreen. Evergreen is a U.S.-based consulting firm, and we've worked with hundreds of mid-market Fortune 1000 companies and public sector organizations to improve their IT service management, and service management in general, execution. Over the past 20 years, we've delivered more than 4,000 service management projects. We are a full lifecycle firm, meaning that we have both process and technology consulting in the same company. We feel that's very important for solving the problems. We are also one of a few top-tier or gold U.S. ServiceNow partners in services, application development, and in training. As a certified applications developer, we develop solutions on the ServiceNow platform, which must be built and tested to the same standards that ServiceNow uses themselves. Service Portal was released May 2016 as part of Helsinki. For those of you who attended Knowledge 16, you got to see Fred Luddy, ServiceNow founder, demonstrate the power of Service Portal on stage. Service Portal is a significant code change in the ServiceNow platform. The CMS is a foundational technology layer that provides customer interaction across all ServiceNow applications. It's like replacing the second story of a three-story house. The high points are the use of leading industry standardized components like AngularJS and Bootstrap and a responsive framework and creating a consistent user experience. There is no stated end life date for CMS today. Given that it's pretty old technology, though, it seems very likely that at some point ServiceNow will stop supporting it. Since it is an entire code-based replacement, moving from CMS to Service Portal can be a very big effort. There is no automated way to do it, and you must essentially examine every line of code to determine what needs to be changed. The size and complexity of your ServiceNow environment to a great degree determines how much work it will be to move. Since it is often a pretty big effort, many decide that improving their Service Portal and catalog at the same time is a worthwhile investment. Those who decide to do so usually consider making it more customer-centric and self-service in nature, improving navigation and search, improving consistency in the services that are offered, and they seek to do a better job of managing their services. Service Portal was designed to deliver a modern user experience and empower developers with tools to be much more creative, much more quickly. But Service Portal is not a service catalog or service catalog and portal pre-built solution any more than CMS was. It's a modern CMS platform upon which you can build a good solution if you know what to do. So what we're going to cover now are some best practices to guide you if you choose to improve your service portal and catalog experience. And there's a lot more detail on this slide in other webinars we have on the 5 design elements of this, so I thought I'd footnote that, but I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it today. We would start with the idea of building a service portal that is a complete, consistent, end-to-end experience for our customers, not just a pretty front door. Here are 5 design principles that you can apply every step of the way in that portal experience to ensure a beautiful, complete customer experience. They are, and they do apply end-to-end, simple, beautiful, complete, predictive, and leading. Like any good modern consumer experience, sometimes people want to search, other times they want to navigate, or do a balance of both as they're looking for something. So we must have a design that provides for both and balances them during the customer interaction. Clear, simple, customer-centric navigation is critical to success with self-service. If an experience is confusing, inconsistent, with unfamiliar language, the customer will quickly bail out and not come back. Building a service taxonomy for your portal to organize your services for both you and your customers is a good way to succeed here. One of the biggest problems companies face in self-service is that information customers need is scattered all over. Knowledge here, frequently asked questions there, requests here, and information I might need to make a decision or answer a question all over the place. That information needs a home page where all of that stuff comes together. The goal of a good home page is to provide enough information for the customer to make a self-service decision and to take action, regardless of what they're trying to do. It should be easy to digest, to determine if I'm eligible for it, whatever it might be, and to enable me to understand it and to take action or request it. Best of all, it becomes the one place where the customers and the providers of a service can come together and actually have a direct dialogue. So make a services homepage core to your design, and then everything else gets a lot easier. Service Portal gives you the ability to create new requests and supporting workflows easily and quickly. But that can also create a problem. You can quickly build hundreds of requests and services, and maybe all of them with a unique look and feel. Your customers won't like that. If you think about Amazon, as customers, we love the fact that it is consistent end-to-end experience every single time across everything we're doing. In fact, we're so used to it that we don't even have to think about it to use it. Your customers want the same thing. So plan to extend Service Portal with a consistently applied service design process which easily flows into a consistent and complete service and request presentation that your customers see. As we all know, incidents are people reporting something broken. But much more often, people are just trying to figure out how to do something. A big value point in self-service is to offer enough knowledge, easily searchable, to make it worthwhile for the customer to use it in the self-service experience. Self-service knowledge is a key weakness in most service desks, which is a shame because many of these same service desks have well-developed knowledge, but only for the use of the service desk staff. It hasn't been reformatted and delivered to the customers for self-service. Here's an example of a search for the term expense management, which is a combination of relevant results with the ability to filter them by type, such as catalog items, knowledge, or business services on the right-hand side. Now, when you get a response like this with perhaps 8 or 10 returns, it's not a problem. You can see it. But what if you came back with 200 items? That's where this filtering could be very helpful to narrow down the choices. The ultimate goal of the Service Portal really should be to drive self-service as the preferred means of customer interaction. In order to do so, we have to provide enough value and quality of customer experience to achieve a tipping point Stickiness means keeping customers coming back for things they can't get or do elsewhere as well. Here are 3 great service portal sticky items that address common self-service experience issues. First is a simple unified status update capability. Status updates can account for 30% of a service desk volume, and they aren't always short. They can take time to research. In this case, an employee can come to the portal and see all of their items open or closed, and not just from IT, but other areas as well, like HR or facilities. Better yet, they can click on an item to see how it's progressing. Next, or number 2, when the customer gets frustrated and can't find what they're looking for, they often bail out on the self-service experience and go back to their old ways of the phone or email. This dramatically lessens the chance that they will come back. So we want to make it easy for them to get help fast while still in the portal experience if they get frustrated. So we should have an easy button. Don't see what you want? Click and it brings up a search bar, the ability to instantly report a problem, or to make a request quickly and easily. Last, the ability for a customer to personalize their experience is also sticky because it's now their experience. One valuable item that we have in this in general is the ability to configure your own notifications. Since a major customer frustration is getting way too many notifications that don't really matter. A good best practice is to design for stickiness to help drive portal adoption. Improving customer satisfaction while also lowering the work of IT should be a very high priority goal of a good service portal. Here are the 3 essential components of a successful automated service. They are self-service, choice simplification, which is less, not more, and it's what we call happy mealing, and automation. All 3 components working well, and I'll stop for a moment. There are a couple of webinars specifically to this topic in our materials if you're interested and would like to know more about how this can be driven. Yeah, or you can email us with the information at the end of this one. So there are other source materials. All these 3 components working well together, though, are required for success. Not only do customers love it, but IT is really the big winner here. IT can get incredible improvement in efficiency, consistency, simplification, and the speed of delivery end to end. I often hear customers tell me it's not possible, that they're too complex for this to actually work, or that their customers won't work that way. In other words, we aren't like Amazon. I don't buy it, and you shouldn't either. Amazon provides compute, networking, database storage, disaster recovery, applications, and a whole lot more built on the world's largest data center by a factor of 1,000 or maybe as much as 10,000. It is delivered entirely through self-service. If we're going to do a better job in offering services, then we will need people to take on the role of service owner. Since this is unfamiliar, it's much easier if we can provide service owner's dashboard, a place where they come every day to manage their service. From here, we can look at activity, get quality feedback, add new features, improve and refine all, and even get new ideas from their customers. This is an example of a service owner's dashboard. It includes information on customer stat, quality, service health, availability, and delivery. Now, if I'm the service owner, I can easily see who my customers are and what they're asking for. This is the one place where the service owner can go to reactively and proactively manage their service every day. So help people become more comfortable with becoming service owners by creating a service owner's dashboard. Evergreen extends ServiceNow Service Portal, with our employee self-service catalog and portal solution, which operates on the Service Portal platform native to ServiceNow. It's like Service Portal Plus. It was designed to be a complete end-to-end customer portal solution out of the box, which you don't have to build, but more you use. It has the functionality I just covered, as well as 7 themes to choose from and 15 distinct landing pages for a true end-to-end experience. It is available as a scoped application on the ServiceNow store, so it helps you upgrade more smoothly, and it is very inexpensive. The majority of our customers use it, but that doesn't mean you have to. We also work with customers to build portal solutions from scratch if their needs make that a better direction to take. So the next 6 slides are pretty dense, and they are intended to be takeaway or reference slides for your use as you head down this path of moving from CMS to Service Portal. Together, they are a high-level, step-by-step cookbook of the actions you would take in making this move, along with the points to consider on how you might improve your customer or service catalog solution. This slide focuses on the start, which is project preparation. A lot of the work in this migration is related to what you have done in the CMS code so far. The more you have done or built in CMS, the more work it's going to be to move from CMS to Service Portal. Here are the things to consider and areas to explore to get a sense of how much work you may be facing in migrating. This is a handy checklist you can use in that process. Along with the CMS code analysis, it's important to review your service catalog items for the depth of development in the following areas of functionality. These are also areas where code change is frequently required. Last, the next 3 slides are really step-by-step, high-level actions from an actual Evergreen CMS to Service Portal migration statement of work, which can help you make sure you're being thorough and following the proper order. Here are the planning and design considerations. Now you can see the print is getting small. Here are the detailed configuration steps, part 1. And the detailed configuration steps, part 2. So this is a complete high-level kind of outline or framework for driving a project like this. You can probably see that the analysis and move from CMS to Service Portal is complex and code-intensive. Over the past 2 years, we've helped dozens of clients to do this. In the process, we developed a set of automated analysis tools to examine the code, determine what needs to be changed, and provide recommendations as to what those changes are. Over time, we combine these tools into one, which we call the Evergreen Instance Analyzer. Not only does it discover what needs to be done, it provides a management and a remediation process you can use to ensure that the changes get made and made correctly. Along with this CMS code analysis we're talking about, or use case for that, it can also perform an analysis of your entire ServiceNow code base compared to published ServiceNow best practices, not unlike the ServiceNow ACE report, but actually going a bit beyond that. So while you're moving from CMS to Service Portal, you can also get in compliance with ServiceNow best practices if you wanted to. Yet, the EIA has an easy-to-use workspace where you can select, launch, and manage multiple analyses at the same time should you wish to do so. The orange circle there you see is the CMS to Service Portal analysis, or what we call Service Portal Readiness Review. If we launch and run that, here we see the sub-workspace dedicated to that specific analysis. From it, we can see what needs to be remediated by logical groupings and drill into any individual remediation recommendation to see the specifics of it and its state of progress. We can also see what needs to be addressed first up in the upper right-hand corner based on a calculated score of priority, and we can set those factors to change the priority scoring according to your specific business needs. We have found one other tough problem, especially with customers who have a large number of service or request items and are under tight time pressure to upgrade or modernize their service portal, since remediating every individual service is required but can be quite time-consuming. So we created the Evergreen Legacy Viewer to help in this case. The Legacy Viewer, or we call it also Classic View, allows us to move to the service portal without having to convert all of the old CMS-based services or requests immediately. Essentially, we can keep them active in the old CMS and tunnel to them from the service portal so they can still be used until we can finish converting or retiring them as appropriate. This is the Legacy Viewer catalog item form where a systems admin can easily go to flag a catalog item to use the Legacy Viewer. This is what the service called Asset Refresh looks like in Service Portal in the Legacy View. And this is what ordering that item, Asset Refresh, would look like in the Legacy Viewer within the Service Portal. Evergreen offers you the Evergreen Instance Analyzer at no cost or obligation to determine what you need to do to move from CMS to Service Portal or to analyze your entire code base against ServiceNow published best practices. We will install it in a non-production environment, run the analysis, review the findings with you, and if you so wish, provide you with an estimated level of effort to migrate from CMS to Service Portal or to align with the published best practices. We do this as a way of introducing Evergreen. The Evergreen Instance Analyzer is yours to keep regardless, which you can use to help manage your code quality and remediation efforts going into the future. So that's all we've got for our presentation today. I'm going to turn it over to Jeff, and he's going to demonstrate the capability of Instance Analyzer against some of the topics we discussed today.
Thank you, Don. So I'm going to start with kind of the Service Portal application in general in terms of highlighting really some of the power and kind of the reasons why you want to move to the Service Portal away from your CMS or native UI kind of experience for Service Catalog. So what I'm showing, this is basically our portal application sitting on top of the Service Portal framework, and this is where obviously our customers can go to get information about our services. They can submit those service requests and then track the status of how those requests are progressing. One of the first points that Don brought up is one of the big benefits of moving to the Service Portal is for leveraging modern technology and componentry. One of those things that we get is as we adapt or we present this website on different devices, say an iPhone, it's going to adapt and adjust or respond to those widths and sizes. Some of the other interesting techniques you can do is if we get too small, some of the bigger real estate content like your menu or your list of favorites can be accessed through kind of your swipe events or your swipe right, swipe left to open and close different components. The other thing I wanted to hit on in this particular theme kind of presents in more of a search-first kind of model. So certainly you can, as providing a modern experience, you can mirror some of the things that in Amazon or Google does, right, in terms of providing a very intuitive search-first kind of model, right? So as I type, as I start to do a search, it can suggest for me here are ways to kind of complete that search, right, and quickly jump to how do I do this, that, or the other. Right? In this case, how do I create training videos, right? And I quickly find at the top of my search results a knowledge article with an embedded video of actually how I can go about using some of this, in this particular case, a particular software product to create, say, a training video and a recording. The other thing is there is functionality built into ServiceNow for if I kind of do a did you mean or a suggested kind of component. So let's say I misspell a word or I type a certain word that's got a different kind of meaning, or we can do some suggestions on did you actually mean to, instead of typing APPL, did you mean to type Apple, right? Further, we can leverage tools or leverage things like natural language processing. When I do a search for like I want an iPad, based off of what I've typed, it can categorize my search into I'm looking to perform some sort of request because of my I want to language. Further, because I'm actually looking for iPads, we have started this search in terms of filtering this specifically into tablets. Right, now, obviously, if I want to, I can widen this search to different componentry and find what I'm looking for, but ultimately trying to steer me towards specifically what I want. Right. Speaking of things I want, right, there's a menu up here, which I think is another key feature in terms of a portal of kind of pinning some of the top items that I might look for. as I'm looking to make requests or looking to get answers or information. So I don't have to hunt and peck and look too deep within the portal experience to find some of the things that are maybe common or commonly looked for me as a consumer. So one of those might be things like making a request for getting software. And what I wanted to highlight here is this is where I'm going to kind of start to transition a little bit to some of the challenge in terms of moving from the CMS to the service portal. Is now we're getting into some of the catalog content and in presenting these catalog item forms. Now what you may find or you may have in your environment is you may have some developed catalog item forms that do some unique things to capture the specific requirements and provide an intuitive experience for your consumers. For example, one of the things that we have in this particular catalog item is this input here to capture kind of payment information, which can be simple as just a simple order or purchase order number, but can be more complicated in terms of a list of cost centers and possibly spread those cost centers and fund numbers across some sort of percentage basis. Now, in the CMS or in the native UI, the way this was accomplished was what would be called UI macros or UI pages, which is a way of having custom kind of HTML and JavaScript code that you can interact with here. Now, when you move to the service portal, those componentry, those UI macros, those UI pages are not supported. So this is a case where we've already kind of taken this item and re-engineered it to work in the service portal by creating what are called service portal widgets to duplicate that functionality. And so the end result is that now I have kind of an item here that can do some interesting things like not just capture multiple rows of information, but further, you'll kind of see here that it also has a process where it's going to validate that I have performed or put valid information in here. Notice there's no submit button or add to cart button until I actually validate against an external source that this data is indeed valid. Right, so a very specific kind of use case of making sure we can capture multiple rows of information, but also that it be valid against an external source. So there's some web services happening behind this actual service portal widget to capture those details. So I wanted to highlight that as an example of a UI macro converted to a service portal widget and some of the output that you get from that. More hit on kind of just in general some of the structural changes you're going to have with moving to the service portal and your catalog items. And so this is an item that basically is kind of a test item that's out here to highlight some of the different form inputs and kind of how they present and render in the service portal. And I will say, depending on the version of ServiceNow you're on, ServiceNow has been working diligently to basically get the service portal catalog items forms to behave very similarly to how they did in the native UI and in the CMS and provide kind of full support. But I would say depending on your version, some of the things may not look exactly as you had in the past. For example, how you broke up your different sections into containers may be more in a single column versus multiple columns. But there is a move to ensure that all of that is fully supported. The other things I did want to highlight with this is there are some presentation differences with some of the variables and some of these form inputs from old to new. So starting with the reference field, you used to have the capability within these particular fields to kind of apply a kind of a breadcrumbs or a filter to get some more specific on how you want to look for that. You'll notice there is no filtering capability here. It was mentioned you can do things like wildcards. So if I do something like star catalog, that'll do a contains catalog. If I want to get more specific and only look for something that equals, I can use the wildcard search or an equal sign kind of search to do that. The other one that causes a little bit of change in terms of presentation is this variable over here called a list collector. For those who have used this, you'll know that in the native UI or the CMS, this is what they call kind of a slush bucket where you have on the left, you have the available values. On the right, you have the values I've selected. And you also have some ways to apply a filter on how you want to filter those left-based values to select from. The way this is set up, it's very much like a reference variable, but instead of having the same capability, instead of just choosing one value, you can choose multiple values from the list. So you end up with basically a list of kind of tags or cards as part of that kind of experience. All right, so I think I've covered the portal fairly well. Let me now shift to analyzing kind of your catalog items and responding and acting on kind of correcting some of those scripting or variable-based issues to make them service portal ready. So I'm going to our Evergreen Instance Analyzer. I'm going to go ahead and just run this from the Review Workspace. I should mention the same functionality. There are options to run some of these same options kind of in the native UI, though this is our kind of our UI to make it more user-friendly to interact with these reviews and the kind of initiation of a new review. So I'm going to go ahead and do let's start a new service portal readiness kind of review. And so the way this is kind of set up is it's scripting me to kind of go after a specific set of records. I can widen my search if I want to. I am going to, in this case, just kind of filter this to just go after my catalog items that are not business service entry kind of records. Because basically my business service entry records are, they don't have variables, they don't have catalog item scripts, et cetera, so I'm not going to care too much about that. Note if I want to, I could also run this again connecting to a remote instance and kind of run this against another environment, say our production environment, or I can in this case run this against my kind of dev or test environment. So I'm going to hit submit. It's going to basically set up the framework for our review. A second here to come in. And kind of just fill in the details of my review record. And at this point I'm just going to say go ahead and run review. So while that's running, I'll let that run and I'll just kind of show you a little bit behind the curtains here. So the way this is set up is all these reviews are set up to go after what are called these rule group records, which are our different kind of use cases. So I'll show you kind of this is the conversion analysis of the readiness, service portal readiness. And so these become groupings of our different rules. And so some of the rules you'll see that we're going after, we're looking at things like your catalog client scripts, looking for things like DOM manipulation, which is not supported in the service portal, looking at uses of various functions that are not supported in the service portal. Also looking at, as I mentioned, things like the use of UI macros or UI pages, which are jelly code that is not incorporated into the service portal. And then there are some areas that are called out, like the use of list collectors because of the presentation differences, but also typically coding around the list collectors has some changes in terms of how it's done in the service portal. And so some of these rules are pretty simple, like the desktop only one are just checking for a given condition, checking if this condition exists for an active catalog client script. And then some of the other rules are a little more deep in terms of what they do, in terms of analyzing whether or not there's an issue. So for example, the check of a UI macro's presence as a variable is not just checking whether that UI macro or UI page exists, but also has it been adequately replaced with a service portal widget. All right, so it's looking for, is this an active variable, is it of this type, but also has it been adjusted and corrected with the service portal widget. The other thing I want to highlight here is that there's some recommendation in terms of how to resolve this particular finding, as well as there can be pinned or set various scripted actions that can be applied as a remediation action. So I get a choice. So if I have this finding, I can say I want to go ahead and run this particular remediation action to reach out and make that correction, which is actually where I'm going to kind of go next. So my review appears to be done. So this is my service portal analysis that was just run, right, that just happened on my start date here of today, right, at my time. Again, it took a couple minutes or took a little time to run, but basically it kind of has some summary of my findings across these different kind of rules. This is a different rule. Hold on. That's not my finding. Service portal conversion. That's a different rule. Let me just go into this one here. So basically this is my findings. This is my service portal conversion analysis. I was going after specific target catalog items. My rules were looked a little different than I expected. So I'll highlight, so this is kind of some, some summary information in here, but also then you get into the specifics of the findings. Right, and so some of these are going to be they're rolled up and grouped under the individual items. And Don mentioned this as part of the kind of slides, right? So we're basically taking the findings at a more granular level, but we're rolling them up into the catalog item that they belong to, right? And then we're providing the various scores to these. And then kind of the other element is we'll reach out and apply some additional metrics, like how often is this catalog item ordered and requested, and then add some additional weight to those items to kind of prioritize the items that should be addressed first and foremost. Right. And so, for example, so if I look at, and this is one that I already kind of worked on before. Oops. So this is, like, for example, one catalog item that I've already remediated before. But basically what this is going to do is going to come out and show me what those items are that need to be remediated, kind of give me a recommendation. I can then call various actions, like if I reopen this finding. Reopen this. Is that a reopening on my item here? So let me just look for different ones here. So desktop only, for example. So these guys give me some options to shape these ones that have some options. So I have some options to run immediate actions on these items, right, to remediate those kind of through scripted activities. I can also go, if I didn't want to run the scripted activity, I can go and edit this record directly to come in and make whatever suggested remediation action I should apply to this item. So the other one I want to highlight, so we'll just kind of go to kind of our asset refresh one. This review has already got these items in here. Hold on, let me see if I can find the review I created today. This one appears to be my old one. Make sure I've got to the new one in here. This is created on today. Why that didn't show up in my list here. So this is my 407. Just refresh this page, make sure I'm seeing that one in my list. Any which way, I'm not sure it's popping up, but I'll just pop this guy in here so we can see it. All right, so this is, that's probably why. Didn't log anything. Oh, I know what it is. So hold on, I did something wrong, but I'll show you what I did. Only business service catalog entry records, so didn't find anything. So basically, I'll just highlight kind of what I was going to show, which is, so for example, the item that I was going to show. So there's an item in here that has a UI macro on it. So for example, our asset refresh catalog item. If we look at this in the portal, what you'll find is that this item appears to be somewhat incomplete in that it has kind of, here's the requested for, here's the details, but I know this item well enough to know there's some details in between or above this requested for individual that's asked me for what my specific assets are I want to refresh. So in this particular case, this item can be remediated by applying kind of a workaround to it to set it to that legacy viewer model that Don mentioned. So that was one of the actions you could apply in there. I'm just going to go ahead and manually apply this action so you can kind of see the result of that. So basically the action would come out to the item, kind of flag this item as being to be resolved through the legacy viewer. That would mark the mark that finding as being applied with a workaround. And so that if we ran the scan again, it wouldn't throw this as another finding. In essence, it's been addressed through this kind of workaround model. And so the end result of this is so that if I were to just kind of clear this cache here and go back to our request something page, I'll just rerun this search for the assets record. So now when I pull it up, the experience is very similar in that we're still popping up the catalog item, but if you look closely on it, you'll notice it's, instead of it being a kind of in-portal modal with the catalog item form, we're basically kind of broken out of the service portal, and we're showing this item kind of through a UI page that supports all those legacy kind of code components. It supports the UI macros. It supports the non-supported client scripts that are there. So it becomes a kind of a technique where you can still use the legacy code, but in the frame of our new service portal, right? And so this becomes kind of a, as Don kind of alluded to, more of a stopgap kind of measure of and something you probably want to do temporarily and eventually move these items to being converted to be Service Portal. But the way this kind of works, right, so I can kind of pick my item on this here. I can fill out my details. I can add this to my cart. And then it takes me outside of that popped up legacy viewer back into the portal with kind of confirmation or messages coming back to the portal so the user doesn't get isn't jarred or disconnected from the portal activities. Right? And then they can still go and interact with the portal in the same ways in terms of seeing here's my item that's in the cart. I can place this order. I want to edit it. Then I can make edits to it, and then in those cases it takes me back to this legacy viewer to make those edits to that cart item. So in essence, keep me in the portal until I need to actually make adjustments to those specific form, and then that's when the legacy viewer components come into play. Last thing I want to mention in here, or just highlight on here, is another opportunity when you're moving these items. So take this item as an example, right, that has a UI macro. The experience is still, kind of fits the older model where you have some inputs of it are captured through the UI macro and the other inputs are captured through other variables. You can take the same item and you could, by using the power of the Service Portal, kind of rethink how you want to do this. So for example, what we did with this is we have kind of this refresh my computer option, which is really it's a catalog item that has its own unique experience to how you go and request this item. So it's got a page kind of dedicated to it that checks whether I'm eligible for a computer refresh. If I am, then I can start that process. I get kind of step through the workflow of this to pick, are my needs business focused or technical focused? If my business focused, then here's the models I can select from. Right, I select what model I want, kind of verify that I've done various activities to preempt this order, and ultimately submit an order for doing a computer refresh. Right, and then ultimately provide some confirmation here of here's my ticket number, but also here's when I can expect this. Here's what I should do in terms of handling my move of files from old to new. Here's what I should do in regards to my various applications. So as a way to kind of, as an opportunity to make this move, you can take key value or key volume-driven activities or key value kind of activities and rethink kind of how you want to present them in this new modern experience because your toolkit is much wider and deeper than it was previously. So that covers what I wanted to cover today. Thank you for your time. I hope this was helpful in seeing both kind of the value of the Service Portal, but also some of those challenges in terms of the coding components that need to be adapted and adjusted so that they work in the Service Portal.
Thank you, Jeff. So I'll move the slide here. Oh, you beat me to it. So if you found any of this of any interest, here are some possible next steps. One, maybe you're interested in our advanced self-service catalog and portal solution, which runs on Service Portal. It is available as a fully functioning self-service demo. You can find it from the banner ads on our website. Sign up and use it if you would like to play with it. It takes a couple minutes max, and it's fun. You can explore. You can learn a lot. You can't get into trouble. Or you can actually download a demo version of it from the ServiceNow store as well. Or perhaps you're interested in establishing a better service catalog and portal direction, from a higher order standpoint, from a longer range standpoint, and having a roadmap that would support that. Perhaps you should take a deeper look at our rapid strategy and roadmap offering for driving this in a multi-phase fashion, and it's only $24,500. And it is fully guaranteed money-back satisfaction. Last, if you are interested in our no-cost offer to get the Evergreen Instance Analyzer with the CMS to Service Portal and the ServiceNow best practices use cases, we'd love to provide it to you. So just let us know if any of these are interesting to you. Here we have an email address, marketing@evergreensys.com, and we will get back to you. So Stephanie, let's open it up to questions if we have any today.
I do have a few, and a reminder, if you have any questions, put them in the Q&A panel and send them to all presenters, please. First question for Jeff. What version of ServiceNow is being used in the demo?
So I was running on a Kingston version, though I will mention that I think most of the features I highlighted in the demo would exist in other previous versions as well, so assuming the Service Portal is part of that version, which would be kind of your Helsinki or higher.
Okay, great. Another one for you, Jeff. If we choose to skip a finding, will it re-display on the next review?
So it depends. The way we kind of set up the instance analyzer, so there are options to kind of make the edits or to say I want to skip this particular finding. So I did mention kind of the whole idea of a workaround. So if a skip is applied or deemed kind of as a workaround, then when it runs a new scan, it's going to basically ignore that one going forward. But if you basically just say, here's a finding in my code that should be adjusted to move to the service portal. If I run a subsequent service portal kind of readiness review and you skip the previous one, it's going to kind of come up again if it's not a workaround-based solution applied to it.
Okay, great. Thanks. Let's see. One last question, Jeff, also for you. Are there options to do a regularly scheduled code review?
So yes. So there's so many options to create like a schedule record and say I want to run this review on say like an interval of maybe every quarter or something like that. The other way we set up the instance analyzer is to do things like as part of a regular kind of code activity or update. So if you have so one of the target areas that you can run the analyzer on is like your update sets. So one of the use cases in there is to say, as you're preparing to move your update sets from a dev environment to, a stage or test environment, run the code review on the update sets, kind of resolve any of the findings or issues, and there's some automation there that if you then go through the review and remediate the findings, it'll go back to the update set and kind of mark it as complete, so it's ready to be moved.
Okay, great. I don't see any more questions, so at this point I'd like to thank everyone for participating. We will have another webinar in July. The date for that is July 18th, and we will be posting the registration and the topic on the resources page of evergreensys.com within the next few days, so I encourage you to check back, and as always you can find recordings of our past events also on that resources and then webinar sublink on the resources page. Thank you again, and we'll see you soon.